curtail predator drone patrols or other programs that draw significant public opposition. In other news from Pakistan, the U.S. is claiming to have killed a militant described as the number 3 of al-Qaeda. The U.S. says Mustafa Abu al-Yazid died in an unspecified attack in northwest Pakistan last month. The U.S. military has faulted a group of officers for a February drone attack that killed 23 Afghan civilians and wounded a dozen more. The victims were traveling in 3 vehicles when a Predator drone hit them with rockets and missiles. The drone operators launched the attack from the Creech Air Force Base in Nevada, where the drones are controlled. A Pentagon review found the operators ignored warnings from intelligence analysts that children were inside the vehicles. The military says 4 U.S. officers have reprimanded and 2 junior officers have been disciplined. The U.S. government has quietly acknowledged a majority of Guantanamo prisoners held when President Obama took office were low-level fighters. In a study completed in January but released only Friday, the Guantanamo Review Task Force determined just 10% of the 240 Guantanamo prisoners were, quote, leaders, operatives, and facilitators involved in plots against the United States. 5% of prisoners were found to be unclassifiable. The task force says 126 prisoners should be transferred to their homes or a third country. 36, they say, should be prosecuted in a federal court or a military commission, and that 48 continue to be imprisoned indefinitely without charge or trial. Colombia's presidential race is headed to a runoff later this month after a first round of voting. Former Defense Minister Juan Manuel Santos captured 47% of the vote, short of the 50+1% needed for a victory. Santos is a close ally of the outgoing President Alvaro Uribe. He'll square off against the Green Party candidate Antanas Mocus, who won 22% of the vote. Tens of thousands of people took part in rallies across the nation on Saturday, a national day of action against Arizona's recent anti-immigrant law. The largest rally was in Phoenix, where as many as 50,000 people turned out.
In unison with immigrant families, this law violates our fundamental principles of human dignity and human rights.
A coalition of musicians, meanwhile, has announced a boycott of Arizona over the law. Spearheaded by Zach De La Rocha of the group Rage Against the Machine, the sound strike has drawn backers from artists including Kanye West, Sonic Youth, and Massive Attack. And the amount of money spent on the U.S. wars in Afghanistan and Iraq has now surpassed the $1 trillion mark. The National Priorities Project Cost of War Counter says the milestone was reached Sunday morning. To date, over $747 billion has been appropriated for the war in Iraq and $299 billion for the war in Afghanistan. The U.S. is spending over $136 billion on the wars this year. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman with Anjali Kamat here